I think we're 3 minutes late. I apologize for that. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm actually right now in India as the rental scale-up and price labs team are, you may know that we actually all remote workers. So we never see each other most of the year, but for 1 week, we're all together in India. So that's where you'll find me. So again, I hope the connection is okay. Do let me know. You'll see that there's, if you're watching it again, thank you for coming here. You'll see that you have access to a Q&A box where if there's any issue with the sound, or if you have any question, feel free to ask the questions. We're going to have a Q&A time at the end. Probably have a Q&A time in the end, but we'll make sure that to take your questions. So do ask the questions when they come along. Right. All right. So to get started, so I'm Thibault from Rental Scale Up. There's 40 of you now. That's so sorry for that. So I hope you can all hear me. So I'm Thibault from Rental Scale Up, organizing this. So the topic we have today is seeing what could derail your carefully laid plan for 2003. I'm happy to be surrounded by 3 speakers tonight. There's François Gouelo, he's the co-founder and CEO of Enso Connect. Neal Cyr, CEO of Gouelo, and Pierre-Camille, who I'm going to call PC. Camille Hamana, who's the CEO and founder of Hospitable. Maybe François, Neal, and PC in this order. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So my name is François, as Thibault mentioned. People call me Frenchie to make it easier in North America. And I'm the co-founder of Enso Connect, a guest experience platform that helps you basically digitize and monetize your guest experience. And our approach is, instead of rebuilding everything, we connect with all of the tools and systems you already use and love. Oh, perfect. And videos here. Wonderful. Thank you. Passing it on to Neal, who I think disappeared.
PC, you want to take over?
I can step in. A pleasure to have you. Good evening from Brussels in Belgium. I'm PC, Pierre-Camille. I'm also French, but you know that's a very French-driven panel, and I happen to be the CEO and founder of Hospitable. Hospitable is known in the industry as basically a leading solution for everything related to messaging automation and guest experience automation in particular. We are on track to send 10 million messages in 2023. That's basically something I had to discover in my own planning, and I'm very excited to be sharing a few things and a few industry insights with you tonight, or this morning, depending on where you are. We have Neal back.
I think Neal is trying to get back in. So meanwhile, I just again want to. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight, right? So or today, depending where you are. As we may have seen, hopefully, with your company, or even if you're a host, you may already have plans for 2023. What we want to focus on in this session is things that may have happened in December or happen in this January that may. That you may know about, may not know about, more worryingly, may not know about, that could derail your plans. That's really what we will go through. So we'll be talking basically about what could make your whole your plans change because of changes in demand. Then we talk about supply. Then we talk about may have a revenues. In January could threaten this. Topic like ChatGPT, for example, I know it's sort of a buzzword in a way, but we have here the CEO of 3 tech companies. So what do they think? What's the impact? That as a property manager, what should I care about this? Should I worry about this? Should I do anything? We'll talk about that. So we'll talk about this, and we'll talk as well as how, in a way, you can think about these global trends, and also how you can think about your local trends, right? How can you see whether there's things happening in your market? How can you also adapt your plan and create a contingency plan? So that's the different topic we'll talk about, and we'll end with right before the Q&A with also an aspect around tech. How can tech help you? Basically, see what's happening and react to it in proportional way. Right? Again, it's not about worrying. It's not about causing you trouble today. It's more about, okay, that's new. Maybe it's in your plan, maybe it's or not. Check whether you're aware of that, and that's how you could be doing. Meanwhile, I think we're trying to retrieve Neal, and he's on his way, so he's coming, and he's just here, so it's perfect. So I will give a few seconds for Neal to come on board. Thank you, Neal, for being here. Sorry about the text.
Apologies for the delay there. Heard a few intros there. I'll give a quick intro. I'm Neal, CEO of Gouelo. We do pricing and revenue management for short-term rentals and vacation homes. Delighted to be here with you all today.
All right. So I want to get started with maybe questions around demand. What are the factors, the new factors, new things that have happened on the market that may derail the plans that we all may have for this year in terms of demand? Who wants to get started with this one?
I can start.
Okay.
Yeah, so we watch demand pretty closely. We've had mostly in the US, a little in the UK, and a lot of what we're seeing now is if you're trying to forecast the rest of the year based on what you saw in January, you might have some bleak outlook for the rest of the year. But if we look into first quarter, February, March, we haven't seen that downturn yet. So as we're planning for these, future months, ask ourselves, should we preemptive for those months based on weakness in January? No, we're trying to respond, as quickly as possible and recommend the same. So we're looking for opportunities to try to push a little bit of occupancy there. So yeah, what we're seeing in January is, negative. We're not anticipating the same right now for February, March, just because the indicators don't suggest that. But it's going to be a matter of late-term demand. We're positive right now for January or for February and March, but it's the close-in demand that we see at risk for those first quarter finishing.
What's interesting here, Neal, in a way, it's exactly the right, I think, introduction to what we're talking about today, right? There's like it's like on one hand, things are softening, on the other hand, it looks like it's going to be okay, and that's just one factor in demand, right? And I think maybe PC don't want to go on, and on your side, what are the factors you think could be affecting demand this year?
Yeah, and I think basically what's making the headlines across the news in recent weeks is basically fears about the economy, about losing your jobs with those very big layoffs, especially in companies that are usually pretty comfortable. I think a few things that may have an impact in the travel and hospitality industry in particular. We've been expecting for a recession quite some time. It's still not happening. Actually, even today, we got the numbers for the Eurozone, and that's still not happening by a very thin margin, but still not a recession. But the problem is basically the consumers probably don't care and don't follow the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal paying a lot of attention. What they would probably react, and their perception is probably going to be to hold on those discretionary expenses, on those travels, that basically on those vacation spending until a lot later during the year. So what I would expect really maybe happening for 2023 is that people interested in booking a long time in advance are people particularly going to be making more last-minute decisions. The month of their travel, maybe a bit earlier, but not 6 months or 3 months in advance. And that's obviously something that's going to be pretty dramatic for the revenue management part of your business, cash flow, obviously for managing the top season. So my recommendation would be to wait. I'm not a revenue manager, that's in his job, but really kind of holding on keeping on lowering prices and keeping your supply a bit of dates a little bit later during the
so
year.
With what you just said, PC, and also what Neal said, about demand, we see factors. What's interesting, especially with François, with what you do at Interconnect, is your view maybe not only on just the overall volumes, but maybe also in shape, in what demand could be like. So can you also talk about the changes?
100%. Media Traveler Value Index of 2023, and what we're noticing from the patterns is that the inflation-related concerns are basically replacing that sort of post-pandemic health and safety expectations that we had over the past 2 years. And guests are now really looking are kind of climbing through the roof and meeting that demand, accompanied with, the obvious label of guest experience, if you will, to meet your guests' demand, literally.
So that's also guest expectations changing. That's another aspect. And François, you just touched upon, just talked about supply, and it's exactly what we want to talk about now. Again, we're really trying to go fast through this, but it's really important that we mention it. And by the way, before I go into supply, I want to mention something. Again, if you have questions, do ask the question in the Q&A. We are recording this session, so you'll be receiving an email later with the exact recording. And also something to mention is that you're going to get also special offers by our 3 speakers. And I will detail that a bit later, but that's another reason for you to make sure you're going to get that email. So on the supply side, Neal, do you want to get started and tell us, so what are the new things that people may not have had in mind when they're laying out their plan for 2023, and that may strike them?
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest risks in setting your plan, in the sense that it's something you don't have. It is, as the market grows, it has a huge impact on your business. At any given point in time, demand is somewhat finite. And once we start spreading that over, bigger and bigger inventory, as a manager, it becomes incredibly hard to forecast. As PC was saying there earlier, if demand is shifting closer in, where people are going to book last minute, that becomes even harder to forecast, because you have a longer trend, you can find variances. And when it's all booking closer, then you have very little time to respond to the market demand. So we see kind of supply and continued inventory growth as the biggest risk to probably hitting that plan, because it's again outside of your control.
Yeah,
I'm on mute. You mentioned what PC said on the demand side. Actually, even for the supply side, I was also turn to PC. What do you see on the PP?
Yeah, I know what we see in our customers is basically, I think the biggest fear, especially on the argument on the supply side, is really what happens in the real estate market, where there is a lot of anxiety, in particular in the US. What we see is that in the top key markets in the US that have a lot of touristic importance, there's the top properties are still finding a lot more buyers than they need to basically be able to only maintain prices. So there's still going to be probably still maybe a bit of an inflation, or at least stable prices for top properties that are fully equipped and are basically the turnkey properties that can go onto short-term rentals the next day. There is going to be, however, a problem maybe for other markets, for other geographic markets, where it's not going to be so rosy. And what we've seen in the past in those markets where there is a real estate crunch or a bit of a doubt as to the valuation of the properties, is that the agents or the owners themselves decide to basically wait for better days and go for short-term rentals. So decide to put their properties for sale and for short-term rentals in the meantime. And that's basically the biggest fear. There is also probably another factor, but I'm really, based on latest numbers on inflation, I'm not sure if that's still true, is that basically long-term traditional multifamily rentals operators, owners, that basically we decide to go for a short-term rental instead, to basically be able to adjust their rates every night, every month, and not have to wait for an indexation depending on the market. I happen to have lunch just on inflation and the fear of it in the short-term rental industry. I happened to have lunch with the CEO of Turnover BNB just earlier today, great lunch. But basically, he told me a bit more about what they saw on the increase on the inflation of cleaning rates, where they had full visibility over. So I want to thank ASAF for basically allowing me to drop that number. But basically, cleaning rates, what they see in the data is that they have been increasing by 30% in the past 2 years. But so far, in the last 3 months, those cleaning rates that are charged by the cleaning people directly to managers are going slightly down. So that really may be an indication that the biggest increase in rates has been consumed, and now you're going back onto a more competitive marketplace for obviously one of the biggest cost factor for property managers.
So we've seen how, I think since last summer, people have been talking about the Airbnb bust, right? That the fear that people will be getting fewer bookings per listing. And I can I hear some signs, right, from both Neal and PC that there's going to be an increase of supply in that sense that could be happening. So these are, on terms of demand and supply, these are things again that could be affecting you, but also it may not be applied to each of you, but depending on the market where you are or type of guests you're getting. But it's really something to have in mind, because maybe because of COVID, some patterns we forgot to plan for, and things may be happening this year. So let's start with a favorite topic when we talk about regulations, but not regulations, especially on the short-term rental bans side, but on the privacy side, something we sometimes don't think about, but if we as we're business people, we're also marketers, that may be impacting us. So François, do you want to take it away, please?
I think with over the past 2-3 years, the obvious increase in digital anything. I mean, we've got tools and software coming out for pretty much every vertical of your hospitality business. And I think there's one key factor that a few operators have forgotten is the data privacy aspect of things. As you run a hospitality business, you accept guests from all over the world, and there are certain rules within Europe that apply even if you're based in North America and you accept a European guest. So we've heard the big names, the also finding some operators for not following the right rules is something that should be on your mind. Maybe not top of mind, but should be in your list for 2023 as well.
Thanks, François. And so another topic, which is not maybe top of mind, could be interesting, especially when you think about, in the end, profitability, is currency exchange. And PC, I think you have something quite interesting to share about that.
No, I'm not sure, but obviously, if you are impacted by currency exchange rates, congratulations, you've made it. But that's something that basically we have experienced a little bit in the past year. A lot of our customers are based in the US, and we have a European-based team. And the exchange rate between euro and dollars has been going pretty wild, varying about 20% between the lowest and the highest. And now we can put that into the context in 2023 of an expected reglobalization of travel, where we can expect more European, more American to go across the continent. And there is also a bit of the unknown of basically China. Would Chinese travelers be able to go back to the US, to go back to Europe, as they were a very significant part of Airbnb or guests, for example. So that's something that's very hard to manage. There are solutions that exist to be able to hedge your risk based on that. It really would be impacting operators that are, for example, on the direct booking website that do their own payment processing and have made an effort into localization. The problem here being that a guest can book a stay in the US in euros, cancel 3 months later, and that may be of completely different value if you were basically have converted exchange that into dollars. So definitely very sophisticated problem to have. It can, however, seriously hit the bottom line. That's something that obviously at Thibault we've been looking at in relation with our direct booking engine to be launched soon.
And I like what you talked about, PC, in terms of reglobalization, right? Because in a way, during COVID, we kind of forgot that we also have people coming from other continents, from the regions, right? I think big cities in the US, for example, whose demand has been depressed for long, international travelers is there, right? So it's a very interesting to to notice here. Another factor maybe to talk about, which is not so happy, is layoffs. And I think there's two aspects to layoffs. One to take it and talk. Well, I can get started. All of you can chime in, right? But for example, I'm just wondering, this makes sense to you, thinking, oh, there's been a lot of layoffs in the tech industry. These people are high spenders, or they were remote working. So that's going to affect maybe the high, the luxury side of our vacation rental market, or that's going to affect the remote workers, and this whole remote workers fad, it's over and it's not going to happen anymore. So I'm just pushing it a button a bit, but what do you think of that? On the demand side, the layoffs in the tech industry, should people worry, or it's just like, again, it's a Financial Times news and that's not going to affect us so much? Who wants to take it?
I can jump in real quick on this one. I would just say companies are focusing on profitability and are looking at what will not drive that profitability. I don't think it's a red flag signal for the industry. The recent layoffs from Vacasa and so on, I wouldn't see that as the ultimate red flag, because there are companies out there that are still hiring. There are a lot of property managers that are still growing and need more support. I think it's just based on different business models, the priorities have shifted, and that priority being not growth at all costs, but looking at, is my business actually sustainable for a recession that is impending? So or not.
I don't think I would disagree at all. I think basically so on your point, Thibault, of those big spenders working in tech, working remotely and traveling around the world, while basically being paid maybe the San Francisco rate. I think those people basically have been assured that recruiting a US-based developer is still as hard now as it was 6 months ago. I've not seen any kind of, maybe another argument, another line would be about companies that decided to call everyone back in the office. So the people that already have been enjoying I don't think there is anything to have an impact there. I hope so. In any case, I think on the Vacasa and property management side, I think it's very interesting, because I think it may be an early sign for the larger operators that obviously Vacasa being public, it has basically a broader access to capital. What I'm interested in is the private larger operators, 1,000+ properties, some of which are located in Europe and in the US as well, is what would they do? Are they going to be, have they raised earlier? Can they stretch their fundraising for a little bit longer? Or do they need to go and push for profitability in an expectation to basically get a new round sooner? And that's something that honestly, the things that were moving, Vacasa maybe wanting to hold their cash first.
That's good advice. We can maybe you're counting on selling your company this year, and maybe the advice to wait up a bit. So we talked about the big trends, or big, let's say, industry trends that may affect the plans you had for 2023. But let's now focus on the local market, right? As you just said, some of these trends may not be relevant to you, but so there may be local trends that are very relevant to you, that or new factors that may have come in that you may or may not have noticed. So let's talk about how to track those major events that are happening to you in your local market that may affect demand, for example, in your area, and how to plan resources around these changes. Neal, do you want to get started again? How to track these local events, for example, the big factors?
Yeah, I guess in revenue management pricing, I try and think from, top down. So think about your entire portfolio, and then, work your way down to segments of your portfolio, which we would think as seasons. And then, as you said, find these events. seasonality, does repeat itself. It was a little confusing during COVID as to, how repeatable is your historical data. But generally speaking, using your own history can, indicate and give pretty good seasonality patterns for your portfolio. And then from there, you can use that historical data to also find, unique events. And, the managers themselves are generally the specialists in this in terms of they know their unique market. So as you said, what might be trending, in the US level might not be trending at, the city that you're living in. And then from there, you want to get a good data provider or some market intelligence information, because there are going to be events that are outside of your current plan, in the sense that, some things repeat. Christmas is pretty easy to plan for, but other events move or are introduced. And if you haven't yet identified those, you can start finding them by looking at what's going on in the in your neighborhood. You might see spikes in occupancy, spikes in price, and that's a pretty strong indicator that you've missed something. Now, just hopefully what happens is you can go and reprice or respond to that before the inventory's gone. But that data is pretty critical to, first, as we're talking 2023, set your plan. But just after you set your plan, the next thing you need to start doing is monitoring the market and updating constantly what you think is going to happen.
So Neal, you just talked about, the importance of setting your plan and monitoring, and it's the whole how to, even create a plan or how to plan for things. I think PC, I think you may have some things to add on that.
Yeah, we're joking in the rehearsal that a lot of people on the panel now are French, and so for some reason we don't like to plan really well. I'm very new to this exercise myself for Splittable, and one of the things I like to do is basically don't plan a year in advance. There's going to be plenty of learnings. Your business is going to change dramatically. What I like to do is a stagger chart. It's basically on any metric that you have, plan every month what's your expectation, and do so every month. So you have basically the actual number, and you also have the numbers that you basically have been expecting for the next 12 months. That's something that Neal would agree with. Is your errors, the expectation that you had in January about what March is doing, and then you corrected that in February, and the actual number in March are basically where it's key to doing a better job at this forecasting. But then again, I'm very new at this game, so but I think this is a good strategy and a good methodology.
PC, I think you're right there. Is one thing if you set a forecast is you're going to be wrong. What you can do is try and figure out how wrong you are and improve for the next time. Because say we do plan 12 months out, if we're planning December today, we're going to be off. And it's a matter of when we reset January next year, can we do a better job? So I think you're spot on there.
Thanks, Neal. And François, how about you? What's your view on planning for things and making sure we understand what's happening in our own local market?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree as well with PC when it comes to the planning month by month, especially when it comes to being a tech company and having priorities change from a roadmap perspective. But in the case of property managers, and I know I've touched about this on the whole GDPR, PIPEDA, and so on, but also making sure that you have the tools in place to collect all that information so you can make more data-driven decisions and not just gut feeling based decisions. So this could involve using data and analytics for your guests. And obviously this is something I could focus on quite a bit, but also in the case of Neal, other information, the events that are around you, leveraging that information that you're collecting to know how to position yourself for the months to come. Specifically, 6 data points that I always suggest operators to focus on, which include things like contact details, identity information about your guests, demographics, who are you actually targeting, what is the audience that you're bringing in, will make the events in the area more relevant or not, the preferences that your guests may have, the feedback that you're getting from those guests, and also, let's not forget our favorite one, the payment information that you can always leverage for additional settings later down the road. But those would be kind of my 6 buckets to focus on and look at, and then of course monitor that evolution of data to see how your business is evolving over the course of the months.
Thanks, François. As we have here 3 CEOs of tech companies, I would like to take the opportunity to discuss everybody's favorite topic du jour, which is ChatGPT. And what I really want to know whether you think, it's like, everybody's been playing around with it. Everybody's kids have been using it, right? So, but what should, as a property manager, what should I think of it right now? What kind of impact can it have on the way I run my business, from anything from operations to pricing to content writing? So what, again, feel free to whoever wants to get started, but what do you think is the actual impact on my plans for 2023? What should I do? Should I be worried? Should I not do anything? What's your view on that?
I could start real quick. I don't know, but I get really excited about transformer models in general and just how they work and what they're able to do. I think see it as a personal assistant over anything to help you currently in today's state, to help you write copy for certain things, answer certain questions, and so on. I think we are going to see a flood of non-useful blog posts from all companies coming out because ChatGPT can just write it out for you very quickly. This also leads to potential misinformation in many ways. So make sure if you're using it to write copy that it's actually pointing out to the right things in the industry. But I think where I see the most excitement specifically for tech companies and of course for the property managers using those tech companies is how to leverage these language models, not necessarily to have a fully fleshed out chatbot, but to perform certain actions that may be tedious that your current systems are unable to perform. This might be, a night mode operator that can help answer specific questions that you don't have the resources right now to hire someone part-time for certain evenings that are busy, but it's always the same questions and you need that to get answered one way or another. Or understanding the context of someone requests a specific upsell, that information, it's in front of you, but you need to manually approve it right now because, well, there is no system to understand what that variability between guests having a late checkout, things like that might be. So I think it's going to bring the context into your automations, allowing you to actually perform what we've all been striving for, which is personalization, and no longer just basic if statements and then companies saying we use AI. You're going to be able to challenge those companies who say we use AI now and see if there's actual context within those automations. So that's my hot take, but I'm excited to use GPT within Enzo Connect for sure.
Yeah, same at Hospitable. I think obviously we're very excited about the technologies that power ChatGPT. It's a bit tricky though. So we at Hospitable, we've been leading the way on everything artificial intelligence related. So we already have classifiers, so a different type of technology that, for example, would be able to detect a genuine question from a guest about what we believe to be the most popular universe of questions, like questions about Wi-Fi, questions about parking, discounts, early check-in, late check-out, the entire universe and the entire rundown of questions that basically we believe the response of which can be automated easily. Now, the importance of ChatGPT is going to be the ability to write messages, to directly write content. Now, the thing about ChatGPT is that I'm more excited about what's going to be looking like maybe a year or 2 years from now than it is today, because it can tell a lie or some unreliable information very confidently, and it still needs a human touch to basically not ensure that you're not communicating directions to your guests in a completely different path that you are not necessarily expecting. There is going to be a gigantic amount of capital that's going to be invested into those technologies. Some that have started already, but now, for example, you see the response of, so ChatGPT is basically, there's a commercial agreement with Microsoft. So you can expect Bing to be the one laughing last on the search engine wars. It's basically now the case. And so Google just called the code red. So their only priority in Google now is to be able to have their own technologies to be able to compete. And that's going to be delivering, I think, for operators, for managers, an entire new generation of products that are going to be AI first, and that are going to be allowing a completely next level of automation and of care for your businesses. For me, the thing that I believe can be already anticipated, operators that have invested in technology reliably, confidently for the past 10 years are whether that's going to be probably one of the most powerful trends of the decade for everyone in any industry. So cannot be understated.
I think Thibault might be
I have a
frozen.
feeling that we lost Thibault here. It
But I
seems like
will add to that very, very
Yes, go ahead.
briefly. And I couldn't agree more. And I think, we've been talking about the property manager side of things where, but I think also in the tech side of things, tech companies, as you just pointed out, that aren't using or don't really have this on their plans or so on, will be far behind from those who do. So I'm excited to see how property managers are coming up with ideas, not just from a write my copy for my listings perspective, but more sentiment analysis, context analysis, like understanding who your guests are at a much more data-driven and granular way. So yeah, TBD on where that goes.
Just to be ironic, you may have noticed I have a lot of tech issues, but let's talk about tech some more. Sometimes on the tech side, things don't work out, but sometimes actually tech can help you. And again, we're talking about 2023 and how can as property manager, right? How can I leverage tech basically to create my my contingency plan, right? I need this plan to adapt to what we've seen. So how can I leverage tech in this case to help understand what's happening and again adapt to these new factors? So maybe PC, you wanna get started on this?
I'm happy to, but just to give an introduction, everyone obviously is looking for a tech stack. And just going back a bit on what we've been talking about, we believe that 2023, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for managers, also going to be a lot of risk on with whatever direction. Hey, that sounds like the thing that we could have run last year, to be honest. The thing is, in this kind of uncertain environment, you need to have your ally as your tech stack. And do you have a tech stack that you're confident could handle 100 times what you're handling today, maybe for a tenth of the resources that you can have dedicated on that? So there's going to be a premium for all products, vendors, and operators ultimately that can react with a lot of agility on the changes that are happening in the market. And that's basically a lot of operators, managers have been talking about being tech driven. That comes with higher multiples in the evaluation. And I'm very interested about basically what that's going to mean with the advent of technologies actually like ChatGPT.
Thanks, PC. And we talked a bit earlier as well about how to lay out your plan and how to do things, to understand what you should be what you should give priority to. And maybe also in that sense, right? I think maybe what's important is probably to understand what should be a priority to you and what works with what, probably, right? So just of tech to then adapt.
Yeah, I think, well, we're going to see the problem of fragmentation in this industry is a consistent one. I mean, there's the number of PMSs, the number of guest experience platform, the number of revenue management. We have enough companies in every single vertical of your business that it's hard to make the decision of, well, which one? My friend told me this one was better, and my friend told me that one was better. It's very difficult. And I think what we're going to see is two types of consolidation. One, which is on the M&A side that we've already seen with PMSs, but also another one around this sort of connect approach. And obviously, the name Enzo Connect, I mean, this is kind of our thesis of bringing those different pieces that are best in class in certain verticals to allow you to have that functionality and focusing more on the connection between your tech stack to centralize it from an API perspective, from a data flow perspective, and so on. So from a how can tech help you plan and execute this is really around what are the verticals that you are missing? So what are certain tasks that your team might be repeating over and over and over again? How can you automate that? And how can you piece this puzzle together in a way that works for your business? Every hospitality business is unique. Every vacation rental is different. Every guest is different. Every owner is different. So being able to configure your systems at Enzo Connect, I think we have 15 different tools we use for our sales process, and I'm very happy to centralize it around the equivalent of my PMS, which is my CRM, if you will. But I still need the best in class for call recordings or Zoom for calls in general, things like that. So we're going to see that sort of fragmentation, I believe, sort of consolidate from an API perspective. And in this case, it's on you as the property manager to understand what are those pieces I am missing and how can I centralize it while having different tools, if that makes sense.
Thanks, François. And Neal, what's your view on that, on the role of tech to adapt to these new changes?
as we said earlier, if you're trying in the sense of that we said, or our forecast. So what we're doing is automated forecasting, and we are, far out, we're going to be wrong, but it's an automated process in the sense that the forecast runs every day. And we're guaranteed to improve. So forecasting is a process that you want to keep doing because it's hard and you're going to be wrong. But if you have an automated process that will update the forecast for you, we just released a revenue planning where you can plug in these numbers and then track the forecast as you get closer and see if you can hit those numbers, and then to start measuring some errors. So it's automation, and it's looking to improve on accuracy. So learning through the errors.
It's all about learning, and thank you so much to the three of you, because again, I hope we monthly and 2% quarterly, 30% discount on your new subscription. For the guest experience solution, Hospitable is 20% off for 3 months. And again, it's so it's really a 25% discount on subscription for the first 3 months if you want to try out Hospitable and Quibble. The is 20% off. So make sure that what each of these offer does. We tell you exactly how to redeem it, because you want to redeem the offers. We'll tell you exactly how to redeem them. So please make sure to keep this email. Make sure you're going to get a recording with how to redeem these very offers, and make sure you understand exactly what they're about. Turning to Yuvika, do we have questions for the moment? One. Okay, let me see.
Seems to be one of our clients, actually.
What's the question? Thank you. All right. How can we use ChatGPT to answer emails? Or what else can we use to automate daily tasks? So 2 questions, right? There's probably one around ChatGPT and emails, communication. So I think we may have some people around the table who are about to do this, and how, on the other hand as well, any kind of things to automate, generally speaking, daily tasks, or any kind of maybe productivity hacks or automation. I think we're good people around the table to answer that. So who wants to get started?
I can get started on the ChatGPT. So first of all, you will not be able to check it right now. It's apparently at capacity, because I wanted to try out ChatGPT for basically what it would answer that very question. And unfortunately, that's impossible just simply because of the popular demand. The idea is you can give 2 sentences to ChatGPT and basically allow him or instruct the AI to basically generate an email for you, maybe with some indication as to the tone. So really, you can interact with it as you would of a personal or executive assistant that will do some of that job for you. What we see at Hospitable as a potential application of this technology is really a bit more sophisticated, but that will be requiring a bit of training on your listing data, on your previous conversation with guests, on your tone, and then be able to generate a draft of an answer for any question that may be coming your way. So far, a lot of our own product is based on messaging rules, is that you need to set up and configure some automation for a very precise scenario. Now, what ChatGPT would allow is really basically an open field without any kind of configuration, without any input from the host, just simply leveraging all the experience that you already had with your guest, being able to generate what would be the next one. And ideally, that would be providing something that would be close to what you would reply. That's maybe very hopeful. But I think the reality here is that it's still going to be exclusively a draft. You still will be the one pressing the send button. You will not, and you can amend that reply yourself. But I think it would be very dangerous at the current situation of the technology to be for the software to basically be hitting send on your behalf. For the rest of automation, there are multiple services out there. Thibault is one of them that can, as you understand, automate everything on guest experience or operations. There are plenty of products that, for example, can help you, interact with your cleaning team and automate a lot of the workflows, the processes that you have to go through daily as an operator.
Thanks, PC. Who wants to take next about this?
I was actually going to disagree with BC on this one in terms of, I'm sorry.
Controversy.
But in terms of sending it automatically, and the reason is, so we had this function within Enzo Connect where basically similar to what you were explaining, PC, with regards to, not sending out the message automatically, basically creating suggestions based on a queue of answers you've already done and so on. And what I've noticed is it's accurate enough to select across different verticals. I know where you're going to take this, but you have the key information to scope it down. Meaning, from a listings perspective, if I know the reservation time, I know the previous information about check-in and so on, and it's basic questions, right? So a select list of questions like check-in or Wi-Fi or checkout, I think it's perfectly fine to answer it automatically. I think where it gets more complicated, and to your point, BC, is going to be around the services for that particular guest in that property that have never been done before, a question that hasn't necessarily been asked before. But in this case, you could probably remove a majority of all of your questions that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, because as I see from the messages in our platform, that most guests ask the same thing over and over again. I mean, they're not the most creative here. They're not asking a boat that can fly,
Yeah, they can be very creative as to the way of asking this question, but that is actually something that our product, for example, and I hope others do, is basically detecting those most common questions as part of the universe. So that's not particularly new technology that already exists. So among customers, I'm very happy that none of them has to basically give the Wi-Fi password, answer a question about parking.
Before I move on to the topic, Neal, do you have anything on this one, or should I move on to the next topic? Question?
Yeah, I think those guys covered it better than I could.
Sounds good. Bonus question from my side. What to expect in terms of changes from the big platforms, the big OTAs, right? Maybe each of you, if there's one thing people should be on the lookout in terms of like what Airbnb or other big platforms could be doing or have released maybe or will be releasing, what could again derail our plans for 2023? Who wants to get started on this one?
I can start, man. I would like to. This is the hot potato. I think the run is probably going to be on not being impacted too much by that as a risk factor. Is that we've seen changes, for example, this year on Airbnb's homepage, different tabs, and there was a lot of pushback from property managers about their listings no longer being visible. And I think that's definitely is another trend. Obviously, that's very powerful in our industry, and that's really the run towards direct bookings. Now, direct bookings always come with their own set of challenges: payment processing, the risk of chargeback, the insurance liabilities that go with that. And yeah, we are going to be having a solution for us at Thibault in the coming days or weeks. With their own direct booking engine, with the merchant of record, that I believe is a good solution for a lot of operators in the market that are not ready to handle all the complexity. I was talking earlier about currency exchange risk, forex risk. That's definitely one of the things that happened for some of the larger, more sophisticated operators. I think the point is become your own OTA and be the one owning directly your customers, your customer data. And that's something that François was talking about earlier. And have the right to set the pricing the way you intend to, with hopefully also lower fees. So you're not likely to be impacted if someone in California or in Austin, Texas is changing their mind about how the platform should work.
All right. Good to hear. Who's next? Gary, good to hear. Who's next?
And from a pricing perspective, I think, OTAs want control over display and how that price is displayed. I think, as you mentioned, Airbnb is, thinking about, that display and how it is represented to the customer. Because when fees are not included in display, the price elasticity still, people will generally continue even with high fees. And we saw, inelastic changes in fees over the last year and a half or so, where maybe to cleaning fees had been increasing, as PC said there, by 30%, but the pace of booking hadn't changed. And when you do full display, it does change the consumer's experience. So I think the control over how the price is revealed to the consumer and at what stage in the booking flow that happens will be interesting how it plays out.
So we heard control twice, right? We heard.
I mean, sorry, I agree with both here, and it's just where does the data come from? Top to bottom flow, right? It starts at the meta search with Google. That's where people are searching. Then it goes to the OTA where people are making the reservations. Moves down to you as the property manager through the tools that you might be using. So you are at the bottom of the stack. So taking control, again, just to add a nail in the coffin here on the word control, but is basically, I think, a priority for 2023, so that you remove a bit of that dependency on specific OTAs and really embrace the fact that you are a hospitality business first, and you are on Airbnb second. But yeah.
So as we know, we usually don't want to oversell too much, but the question I have is really about each of your solutions. So what problem is each of your solutions are going to solve for the hosts that hosts don't even know they have? So what are you guys solving for that people don't even know? Oh, wow, I have this problem. I don't even know I had this one. Want to get started?
There's quite a few. I mean, I guess I can start right away. I think my main goal in this industry is to solve the fragmentation specific to the vertical of guest experience. That's the overarching goal of what we're trying to do at Enzo Connect. Obviously, with different functionalities, our goal is to partner. We have a messaging system. Hospitable has an amazing messaging system. So being able to use all the tools that you want to use in, and I know that's not all you guys do, by the way, PC, that is one of the many verticals, but being able to leverage bits and pieces of the technology that you want and centralizing that to make the experience for your guests better. What making the experience better for your guests, that is up to you. We just want you to have the tools to do that. I could go more in depth. That's me going into the whole business plan and everything, and I think we'll skip that for today. But
again, in the email you're gonna get ways to contact our speakers. So who wants to go next? What are you guys solving for that I never thought I should be solving?
I think the problem that actually Hospitable is solving now today are problems that you should really know about. If you ever have dinner with your girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, and you have the ding from Airbnb, you know you have a problem right then and there. And that's the problem that basically we're trying to fix. François talked about Enzo Connect mission. Ours is really saving, giving our property and to put it on short-term rentals. Now we're here to help you transform it into a property that can be as easily managed, at least as easily managed as it will be for a long-term traditional rental. With the personal tone features that allow us to reply on your behalf, with your replies for everything about Wi-Fi and parking. What I think we're going to be known for in the coming months is really going to be really more about a direct booking engine. That's a bit different, where you don't even have to take the risk of proceed the ID cards or the passports of your guest in advance before you accept the bookings, where you can still run a direct booking, but still have an insurance to protect you whenever there's a problem there. With Hospitable, it's still going to be able to pay your taxes. So the direct booking from your living room without having to take the risk unless you're really into it.
Neal, how about you? What is again? Is there something like a risk or something a problem I may have I don't know about and that you can help me solve?
Yeah, no, that strongly penetrated in the industry in the sense of what I mean by that is we are making an actual prediction of what's going to happen sometime in the future, and then updating that constantly. So we do this type of more traditional forecasting. I came from the airlines, and this is how we would operate, and try to make your pricing decisions based on where you think you're going to end up, not based on where you are now or your variance to the market now. So we're doing forecasting and revenue planning as well, which is pertinent here. We're trying to say, okay, well, how much do I think I'm going to make in each of these months? And then that forecast can tell you.
On Thursdays for 20, 30 minutes, and love to chat about the industry and what you're seeing yourself.
Good. I can only hope that you're going to get that many emails that you actually have to start using ChatGPT to answer these very emails.
I'm already doing it. I'm already doing it. But
yeah, right. I knew it was not you speaking right today. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for attending, for speaking. Again, I want to thank you properly. Thank you, François Gouelo. Again, you're the co-founder and CEO of Enso Connect. Neal Cyr, you're CEO of Gouelo, which is revenue management for STR. And Pierre-Camille Hamana, you're CEO and founder of hospitable.com. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you for speaking. And I'll talk to you next month. Not same time, not same place, but I will let you know about it. Cheers.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.